The following podcast is taken from a live broadcast on Inspire FM.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to Friday Night Live with me, Hafiz Sha'ban. This Friday evening on the 4th of October 2019, corresponding to the 4th of Safar 1441. As usual, we are broadcasting live to Luton on 105.1 FM and nationally via our sister stations up and down the country: Sheffield, Link FM, Peterborough, Salam, Derby and Nottingham. And as usual, of course, you are able to tune in to us via the Inspire FM app nationally, and also, of course, live Facebook stream, able to actually tune in to us via Facebook and also watch us live from here in the studio, inshallah. Most importantly, join today's discussion and debate. Get your voices heard and get your points of view across to our panelists and our listenership up and down the country. Right. Your thoughts, opinions do count. If you want to get involved, if you want to get in touch, you need to know the number 01582 481822. 01582 481822 is the number here in the studio. 07779 4811822 is the number for your SMS and for your WhatsApp messages. 07779 4811822 for your SMS, for your social media messages, and for your SMS messages. Right, we've got a packed agenda for the next 2 hours to discuss with yourselves. A number of different topics we're going to be discussing. Hopefully, we're going to get your contributions, because it's your contributions that really count, that really make a difference. It's not me, trying to define and lead a conversation here or an opinion. I want to hear from my listeners. I want to hear from you in Luton, in Sheffield, in Nottingham, in Birmingham and in the surrounding areas. What are your thoughts? Because we are going to be discussing a number of topical issues, including the recent speech by Imran Khan in the United Nations, right? And we're going to be leading on Imran Khan's speech at the United Nations last Friday, right? Did you hear Imran Khan's speech last Friday at the United Nations? If you did, what did you make of his speech? Was it a moment of success, or was it a moment of capitulation, I wonder, right? Imran Khan's speech is what we're going to be discussing. I've got Asad Mahmood, Office of International Chapters of PTI, who's also going to be joining me on the line, as well as Abu Isra, who is a political commentator. So we're going to be raising those questions with both of my guests later. But let me just tell you what else we're going to be covering. We're also going to be discussing China harvesting organs from minorities. Now, this is a disturbing report. Activists have told the United Nations that China, in addition to what it's been doing previously in terms of its abuse of human rights, it's actually going as far as harvesting, i.e. literally taking out organs from minorities, right? Whether they're alive, whether they're dead. In fact, killing people and taking their organs. And then, of course, the organ transplant business is a huge business. So we're going to be discussing that later, inshallah. In addition to that, you may have heard the news recently that Saudi Arabia is to start issuing tourism visas, right? So it's going to start issuing tourism visas. Now, normally you would only get a visa to go to Saudi if you were going to go to do Umrah or you were going to go to do Hajj. But now it's going to start issuing tourist visas, right? So you can actually go to Saudi and visit more than just the Haram of Makkah and Madinatul Munawwara, right? We're going to be discussing that later. And then finally, last but not least, we're going to be finishing off by discussing the National Homelessness Week, which is from the 7th to the 13th of October, as I'm being told. So we'll get further information from someone who represents or someone who's involved with the National Homelessness Week and campaign. So that's the agenda for this evening. That's the agenda for this evening. So do tune in. 01582 481822 07779 481822 is the number here in the studio. Right, we're going to move straight on to our leading discussion, and the leading conversation, of course, is last week's speech by Imran Khan in the United Nations. Right, so I'm reaching out to my listeners. I want to get the views from my listeners. Right, we've got a couple of panelists, and I'm going to also be discussing it, but I want to hear from you, our listeners. What did you make of it? Now, he was addressing climate change, he was addressing money laundering, he was addressing Islamophobia, he was addressing Kashmir, and a lot of people hailed his speech as wow. As a wow moment, all right? This is Imran Khan. Was Imran Khan's opportunity, and I've claimed it to be a very successful speech. Others have asked questions and been very critical in terms of the United Nations being nothing but then a talking shop. Let me pose those questions to my panelists. I've got both Asad Mahmood from the PTI and I've got Abu Isra, who's a political commentator. Gentlemen, firstly, welcome to Friday Night Live and thank you very much for your time this evening in joining us. I want to reach out to yourself, Asad Mahmood, first and foremost. What did you make of this speech? Of course, being from PTI, you're gonna hail it as a very special moment in terms of Imran Khan's inaugural speech at the United Nations. But there's a lot of critics out there who are saying the United Nations is indeed nothing more than a talking shop. What do you make of it, Asad Mahmood?
Well, first of all, Assalamu alaikum and Assalamu alaikum to your listeners as well. Thank you for having me on this show. Well, first of all, even besides being a PTI supporter, as soon as Imran Khan's government came into power, we at some point stopped being a PTI supporter and started being a representative of the Pakistani government. So, first of all, even besides being a PTI supporter, I think everybody else that listened to the speech, they actually hailed it. And there were 4 key issues that he described, and I think you touched upon them.
Yeah.
That started off with, I think it was money laundering.
Money laundering, Islamophobia, climate change, and Kashmir. But you say you hailed it as a success. I mean, what was so special about it from your perspective to judge it as a success factor? I mean, what did it achieve?
Well, first of all, speeches don't actually achieve in the sense that, if you were expecting some kind of, action being taken from the government, from the USA side, that wouldn't happen. What a speech does is it inspires, it motivates, and makes an impact in the sense of the mind. It turns or changes the hearts and minds. So the battle now is hearts and minds. That's what the real battle is. And that is exactly what Imran Khan is trying to do.
Asad Mahmood, I'm surprised that you said the battle is heart and minds. I mean, you're talking about climate change, you're talking about Kashmir, you're talking about money laundering, you're talking about Islamophobia. These are serious issues, right? It's more than heart and mind. I mean, surely you want some change when it comes to climate change, because your country, our country, Pakistan, is a victim of climate change, and the perpetrators are the nations that he's addressing. Kashmir is exactly the same. Money laundering is exactly the same, where the money is being invested in the West, right? So the nations you're talking to are the people who are benefiting from you being the victim, and Islamophobia is exactly the same. I mean, surely it's more than just a heart and mind battle here.
Well, of course. I mean, look, it's the initiation of that. Every action begins with a thought, begins with an intention in the heart, and that's exactly what that speech laid. That speech laid the foundation of change, of positive change. And before that, I mean, I listened to Mr. Modi's speech as well, and that was 20 minutes of, I didn't actually understand what was he trying to say. I couldn't even understand what he was saying. Before that, I listened to Boris Johnson.
But fair enough, Asad Mahmood. I mean, the Indian press exactly. No, that's a fair point, Asad Mahmood, but the Indian press exactly are not speaking very highly of Imran Khan's 50-minute rant at the United Nations, according to the Indian press. But that's understandable. Let me go to the political commentator Abu Isra that I've got. Firstly, thanks for joining us again, Abu Isra. Right, Imran Khan said, my main reason for coming here was to meet world leaders at the United Nations and to address them and to speak about the potential disaster of all proportions that no one here realizes. What did you make of the speech as a political commentator? We're addressing some serious issues here: climate change, we're addressing Islamophobia, money laundering, Kashmir. Did you hail it as a political analyst, as something to look positively towards, or was it more of a capitulation in terms of I as an individual, as a leader, can't do much, and I want you to help me here?
Jazakallah khair, Bismillah, Alhamdulillah. Hafiz Sha'ban, thanks for taking me on your platform, and Assalamu alaikum to your listeners as well. I've heard what your other guest had to say about this speech by Imran Khan. And my views are this, that Mr. Khan, as the Prime Minister of Pakistan, went to this forum of world leaders, UNGA, when this forum has previously been used by many other leaders. I mean, we've heard speeches from the likes of Hugo Chavez and Gaddafi, and many other, and we have heard lofty speeches. But what has been the outcome of these speeches? The reality is that Muslims of Pakistan were expecting some more meaningful actions from the Prime Minister of Pakistan. So, for example, we are in a situation where it's almost 60 days now that our Kashmiri brothers and sisters, they've been caged like chickens, unfortunately, like animals. There's been a complete lockdown. They're not getting any medicines, food supplies, and we don't know what the situation is on the ground because there's obviously complete media blackout as well. The journalists are not allowed to visit the state. So in such a scenario, Muslims are crying out and they're expecting some meaningful actions. So, it is just absolutely unbelievable and shocking that we waited until last Friday, and it's been since then. It's been 7 days now, and there hasn't been any action.
Right.
So how many more speeches are we going to hear? I mean, and where are the actions?
Right. So, gents, I'm going to ask you. I've got about 20 minutes. So I'm going to ask you to keep your comments brief as possible. We've got a lot to discuss. I mean, there's no doubt. I mean, within social media, a lot of people are. It was a long speech, but they hailed it as a game changer for some people. Others, of course, as you say, are rightfully asking a lot of questions. Right now, my point here, the next point is that according to a number of commentators here, and this is a question for Asad Mahmood, I've got a quote here from Dr. Sullivan de Estrada, and she is from, I believe, Oxford University here, right? Director of Oxford's Contemporary South Asian Studies Program. Let me say, she says, when examining Imran Khan's speech, she felt it has all the hallmarks of an attempt to involve third parties. He's underscoring how dangerous the situation is, and he is suggesting that he himself is helpless to resolve it on behalf of Pakistan, and hence he wants these third parties to get involved. Now, my question to you, Asad Mahmood, right, is these third parties that you want to get involved, whether it's climate change, whether it's money laundering, whether it's Islamophobia, whether it's Kashmir, these third parties are the perpetrators. I don't understand why you want to get the perpetrators involved to try to solve a problem which they themselves have created, and they're the ones who are perpetuating it. I don't understand that. Explain it. Help me understand that.
Sorry. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Yep, sorry. So let's go through your points one by one. So let's focus on money laundering first. You're saying the perpetrators are the West. By your understanding is the West, they are the perpetrators. No. Let's go back to the Pakistani government, the previous leaders. Who were the corrupted? It was Nawaz Sharif. It was Asif Ali Zardari and their cohorts. They were the ones that looted the money, put them in Swiss banks. What were the banks supposed to do? Oh, no, it's looted. They're going to look out for their benefits. But no, the focus, the responsibility, the onus of responsibility was on the Pakistani leaders before Imran Khan. And they were the ones that messed up on money laundering. What did they do for environment change? Nothing.
But that money, Asad Mahmood, as we know from Nawaz Sharif, Asad Mahmood,
not the Western government.
Right.
They're going to look out for their own benefits. So I think it's wrong to shift the blame that, they are the perpetrators. Why
Asad Mahmood, Imran Khan himself, he addressed this issue in his speech, and he said that money, the West is turning a blind eye. That money is coming into London, is coming into Paris, is coming into New York, and we know London has taken a lot of that money by Nawaz Sharif and his family, and they've just turned a simple blind eye to it. That's the reality of the fact, right? So the point is, you're then asking London, like the Saudi, like the Gulf money, we've seen plenty of examples. Then we're asking Britain to say, can you help us with money laundering? When all the money's been invested in London, of course they're not going to help you with that because they're benefiting from it. It's the same with Islamophobia. It's the same with, climate change. Climate change is Pakistan is a recipient or is a victim of climate change, as Imran Khan highlighted, and the people who are emitting all the gases are the Western nations, right?
No, because of their own doing. Western governments are doing as much as they can in terms of their climate targets or their climate. It was they're their own perpetrators of what they've done. They're reaping what they sow. Right. Yes, of course, every country is going to look out for their. Well, let's not forget there are anti-corruption bodies. There are money laundering acts in this country and other countries that do abide by that. There is a system in place that you have to go by this. You can't bypass it. And what Imran Khan is doing is saying, look, guys, these are the major issues I've highlighted in my speech. Can we focus on them? Can I have you guys focus on them? Help us because now we are beginning to wake up to these serious challenges and issues. That is all he was saying.
Okay, Abu Isra, right? I mean, the director of Oxford's Contemporary South Asian Studies. I mean, her analysis is quite profound. It has all the hallmarks of getting a third party involved. I think there's no surprise there. But the fact that Imran Khan's speech is seen by her as him projecting himself as a helpless individual who can't resolve Pakistan's problems and therefore has to turn to third parties. What did you make of that from a perspective of a leader of a nuclear power who's got a lot of human resources, got a lot of other natural resources, not having the ability to solve its own problems? How did you see that?
I mean, I see it as this lady put it. I mean, that's quite obvious that, and Imran Khan has openly asked for U.S. mediation. But does he, forget, Mr. Khan, what is the reality when it comes to these powers? I mean, for example, if you look at U.S., we are asking U.S.'s mediation, but look at their track record. I mean, what have they done when it comes to, for example, Afghanistan, in Iraq, in Palestine, in Libya, in Yemen, in Syria? I mean, look at the list, long list of their role in these places. I mean, going back to, it's just like suggesting that you take the sheep back to the butchers. I mean, you're expecting Mr. Trump or the U.S. president to help you resolve this issue. I mean, and then the other thing is that everybody in Pakistan knows that the objectives the U.S. have for the region is that they have sided and aligned themselves with India. Everybody knows that. I mean, my brother here from PTI, he knows that. And we all know that as Muslims from that region, that American objectives for the region are to make India a regional power, and they want Pakistan to capitulate in front of India.
But Abu Isra, I mean, are we not being too negative on Imran Khan? There's no doubt. I mean, a lot of friends of mine, right, who are not very political, they were up in arms. They were so happy. They were almost celebrating as if we've liberated Kashmir after the speech of Imran Khan. There's no doubt that this Muslim community, the Ummah, is looking for change, real leadership, someone to articulate the suffering and the plight of what's happening around the world. And Imran Khan seems to be quite an orator, a very charismatic, and he seems to have responded to that dire need out there. So are we not being too negative and not giving Imran Khan an opportunity here?
No, actually, look, it's not actually about Imran Khan as a person. We are talking about a person who's in a position of power, who's leading a nation of 210 million Muslims. 65% of this population is under 35 years of age, a young population, and full of Islamic emotions. People are crying out that let us help Kashmiris right now. I mean, for example, in terms of the solution, I mean, obviously we can criticize or critique the speech, but look at what Muslims in Pakistan are expecting. The expectations are that the Pakistani military, which is full of capability, including nuclear weapons and all that, although we are not talking about using nuclear weapons, and anybody with a basic understanding of international relations would tell you that the MAD policy, the mutual assured destruction policy, will tell you that two nuclear powers would never, ever in the history and would never in future would use nuclear weapons against each other, especially when they are neighbors of each other. So this never happens. So forget nuclear weapons there. Nuclear weapons are out of the question. India has a 900,000 military stuck badly in Kashmir. They're demoralized. Their morale is really low.
Right.
And it's not a difficult objective to achieve that we mobilize our Pakistani military to rescue the honor and the lives and the livelihood of our Muslim brothers. So this is the solution.
Right. Let me go back to Asad Mahmood. Asad Mahmood, earlier we were discussing PTI, and you were talking about how PTI now it is government. Okay, so you are representing the government in Pakistan. I mean, on Kashmir, it's been 2 months, right? Lockdown, a huge militarization of that region than it was previously. All the commentators are discussing, human rights violations. There's no doubt about all of that, and that's the reason for the complete, lockdown and break, and cut off in terms of communication. Apart from talking, what is the government of Pakistan doing practically? What is the military doing practically, if anything at all? And where do you see this going next? What are the next steps in this?
Okay. So let's go through this. Essentially, one Imran Khan's government came into power, we inherited a morally bankrupt country, intellectually, financially, and diplomatically. On 4 different fronts, we inherited a country that was just literally on its last limbs. Imran Khan's government worked day and night. Diplomatically, we've done so much work. So we've established connections with many different countries. So if you notice, Turkey and Malaysia and China, 3 different countries that mention Kashmir specifically in the UN speeches, and before that as well. Never happened before, especially for Malaysia. And yes, China is a close partner with us, but he never really openly said it about Kashmir, especially in UN speeches. I can't think of any occasion when China openly said it in the UN.
Practically, what are we doing? I mean, it's 2 months, right, of the saga in Kashmir. Practically, what's next then from a PTI perspective? What's next for Kashmir from a Pakistan perspective?
I think we are so. Essentially, what Imran Khan's government is trying to do is exhausting all our options diplomatically with pushing our allies. Look, this is the situation. This is where we're heading towards. I mean, if you listen to his speech carefully, in between the lines, there were warnings that, look, guys, if nothing happens, we will be pushed to take action. Look, before we go, everybody knows the last option. Everybody knows this, if nothing works, then we're going to go for one. Pakistan is not going to take it. We are exhaustively trying all our options. Our Mahmoud Qureshi, the foreign diplomat, he met over 50 different people. Prime Minister Khan met about 70. It's never happened before. Everything, I understand people are like, they're gloomy and doomy, or nothing is happening. This is happening. They're all gloomy, but change is happening slowly but surely. But you have to remember, for 70 years, Pakistan has been looted. It's been in the hands of these corrupt mafia. I mean, even now,
we are running out of time, and that's
for no reason.
Even
now, it's just unbelievable. People just don't understand.
We're running out of time, so I have to ask you to keep the comment short. But I think you make a fair enough comment. I mean, I would say to according to some observers, Abu Isra, Asad Bhai is making a fair comment, which is, look, give us a bit of time. He's building up the momentum. He's building up the public opinion. He's building up the international opinion, right? And then if all of that fails, then it's time for the next option, which is to use that military potentially, and that's what he spoke about. He emphasized it a lot. You're saying the nuclear option is not a viable option. I understand that, but at least he's using that in his rhetoric to try to get a third party involvement here and try to get some kind of a mediation and some kind of a progress on Kashmir. What do you say to that, Abu Isra?
Well, I mean, look, this is a flawed understanding of the international relations and geopolitics. To think that this international community, I don't know whatever that means, whatever this international community is, that this community somehow will come and rescue the Kashmiris. No, it's not going to happen. We know the track record of this so-called international community. If they would have done if they had any means of doing anything, they would have done something for Palestine by now. For Kashmir is not a recent issue. It's been going on for 72 years. So the reality is that we need to look at now what are the viable options for Muslims in Pakistan. There are only 2 options as far as I see. One, that we need a leadership which is well rooted in Islam in the name which this country was created. Number 2, Pakistani army need to liberate Kashmir. I mean, this is the call which we are now hearing up and down from Pakistan and also in Britain, Muslims living in Britain. They're all talking about that. Look, we need Pakistani army to show what their real character is, what they're made up of. And mashallah, we know that mashallah, our army has a strong Islamic emotion. This is a Muslim army. And it's not that we are warmongers. I'm a warmonger. The reality is that there is an occupation going on. 900k army is engaged by India in Kashmir. And when an army engages in an area, the response always comes from another army. So look, this is not about emotional speech and all that. These are Islamic solutions. This is what Islam demands from us at this stage.
All right.
The Pakistani army need to move and liberate Kashmir, inshallah.
Right. Unfortunately, we're going to go into a commercial break, so I can't really ask any other questions. Otherwise, you're not going to have enough time to answer those questions. I'm going to ask the producers if we can get you to actually slightly hold on and come back after the commercial break, and we can continue with some maybe finishing comments and the last couple of questions or two. Asad, Mahmoud, and Abu Isra, if you are still available, hopefully.
I'm available.
Okay,
Yeah, sure.
so I'll ask the producers to kindly see if we can make that happen. Okay, and in the meantime, listeners, you are tuned into Friday Night Live. That was a heated conversation. It was a productive conversation around Imran Khan's speech at the United Nations last Friday. But you know what? I really want to hear from my listeners on 01582 481 822. This is your opportunity to raise your questions to PTI, Office of International Chapters. I'm going to ask you, Asad, after the break, what does that mean? And I'm also, joined by Abu Issa, who's a political commentator. So a fantastic opportunity. Get your questions directly to these chaps who are the experts, not to me, but to these chaps who are the experts. And give us your feedback on Imran Khan's speech. All right. So 01582 481 822 is the number here in the studio. 07779 481 822. Both of the guests have kindly agreed to continue with this conversation after the commercial break when we come back in a couple of minutes. And until then, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
You're listening to an Inspire FM podcast, making available our popular programs from our daily broadcast on Inspire FM.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, and welcome back to Friday Night Live with me, Hafiz Sha'ban, on this Friday evening, Friday the 4th of October, just turned 6:30, broadcasting live from Inspire FM 105.1 FM. We are live, and you are able to dial in and speak to us and speak to the guests this evening. 01582 481 822. 01582 481 822, and social media messages 07779 481 822. Right, so first half an hour has been full of conversations, charged up conversations, and we have been discussing Imran Khan's speech in the United Nations last week. A lot of opinions out there, very positive reviews of Imran Khan's speech, but also certain questions being asked with regards to Imran Khan's speech and whether that's a platform to make that kind of a speech, possibly, and the subject matters that he's been addressing, and the target audience that he's expecting some help from. Indeed, during the commercial break, I have had some calls come in, or at least one call come in, and I've had some feedback with regards to some of the comments that were being made earlier. And at least one of the comments that I'm hearing from some of my listeners is that Islam is a religion of peace. All right, and the fact that all this rhetoric about warmongering, right, between Imran Khan and Pakistan and India is really unlikely in terms of the nuclear war. I think we mentioned that already, but also we shouldn't be emphasizing too much on the war element, and we should be talking more about peace. Right, so that's some of the feedback that I've got on the call. I have kindly got Asad Mahmood and Abu Isra, the political commentator, and Asad Mahmood from PTI still on the line. I'm going to go straight to them because we've got about 5-6 minutes remaining. Firstly, thank you very much for holding over the last couple of minutes, Asad Mahmood and Abu Isra. I'm going to come straight back to you so that we can give this topic a nice finish off, and I'm going to come back to you, Asad Mahmood, and in terms of whether you can just summarize in terms of what your position was, and also in terms of what are the next steps from here, right? So it's 2 months on in terms of addressing this issue. Where does Imran Khan go next from here, and what is the next steps, Asad Mahmood?
Well, first of all, your listeners have actually hit the nail on the head in terms of, being a peaceful, which is exactly what, the government of Imran Khan is doing. They're saying peace, we want peace. There is no, the person in the studio, sorry, I forgot his name.
Abu Isra, yeah.
Abu Isra. He was mentioning about, let's go for war. He gave the indication. That's what I assumed from his conversations. That is not an option. If he's saying nuclear war is not there, then, why would we even engage in that? Look, international relations, international diplomacy doesn't happen, like that. It's always about how can we resolve this issue? And that's exactly what Imran Khan was saying. He's saying his anti-war is full of peace. In terms of the next steps, I think the next steps would be, again, engaging our allies, our friends, through China. Imran Khan is going again to China end of next week. Then the Turkish president is coming. Also, the meeting scheduled with Malaysia. Our Gulf allies. This is how partnership.
Right. So Asad, I hear that, right? International relations, I hear that. I hear the rhetoric about, building, a rapport with your friends. But the reality is, right, just like with China and its human rights violations, we're going to be discussing about China in a few minutes. When you've got the kind of political and the economic clout that India has and China has, doesn't matter what you do, you've almost got a blank check, and they know they can get away with it. And the reality of the matter is, I hear my caller talking about the fact that war, but it is India that's actually militarized Kashmir, sent in more military into Kashmir, and really cut off that whole region and is perpetrating human violations. It is not Pakistan that's doing that, right? And it's not us that are calling that, but it's India that's done that. And then the last point, very quickly, if I may, Imran Khan has gone into the United Nations and he's been talking about war. He's been talking about 2 nuclear armed neighbors. So Imran Khan's been doing that himself. I know he's using that as a rhetoric, but he's been doing that.
In the absence of peace, that's what he's saying. He's saying, look, if peace doesn't work out, look, because of his speech and because of everything that's happened for a year, India is under a lot of pressure. Imran Khan explicitly mentioned because the world is not doing something because of the trade, because of the economic reasons. That's what it
I get that, but Asad, let me ask you a question realistically. Really, do you, hand on heart, do you really think in terms of international relations? I mean, I've studied international relations academically, professionally. I understand it, right? But international relations today, I mean, we see America. I mean, look at America and the way America goes about in the world. We've seen Israel, we've seen India now in Kashmir. It's about, if you've got the military might, if you've got the economic clout, if you've got the political clout, then who cares about international relations? You can go do whatever you like, and the world will do nothing against you, because they need you. They need to do business with you, and that was the case with Khashoggi. I mean, Khashoggi, 1 year on, I was reading articles. What happened? Trump said it's business as usual.
Yeah, obviously, because Saudi Arabia is buying all these I understand that. My main point is, look, Pakistan economically is not strong enough yet at this point. And that's exactly what we need to understand. Every country has a different situation. We cannot apply blanket rules to everyone. Fine. You're right in that sense. But look, economically it's not strong enough. Why isn't it strong enough? Because of the corruption of 70 years that even, those other leaders are perpetrating.
I hear you, Asad Mahmood, I hear you. And I thank you for that. And I've got last couple of minutes for Abu Isra to wrap up.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so basically what I would like to say here is that, look, this is not an issue about economics or military might or position of Pakistan as such. In fact, as Muslims, our belief is that we rely and tawakkul on Allah first and foremost. So that is our foundational position. Number two, in terms of the reality is that the other day, General Asad Durrani, the ex-ISI chief, also wrote an article. He said that economically, India is in a worse situation right now. And they cannot afford a war right now. And this is the time, to be honest. If you want to do something about Kashmir, this is the time Pakistan has a position. They've done all these UN exercises and all that. Now is the time, if you want to rescue the Kashmiris from the clutches of this oppression, now is the time for Pakistani army to move, mobilize. And India, I'm telling you, this is the assessment of different international players, different commentators, including General Asad Durrani, ex-chief of ISI. India is not in a position to do anything because economically they will get hit badly. This is the time for Pakistani army to move ahead and liberate Kashmir. This is the solution to the problem. There is no other solution.
Right. Abu Isra, thank you very much. And Asad Mahmood, thank you very much. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. Great to have you this evening with us once again on Friday Night Live. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Right, listeners, that was Asad Mahmood from PTI and Abu Isra, political commentator, discussing Imran Khan's speech at the United Nations. We are going to go into the Maghrib Azan now because it's time for Maghrib. When we come back, then we will be asking my listeners for your feedback and for your thoughts. Until then, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Friday Night Live with me, Hafiz Sha'ban, on this Friday evening, Friday the 4th of October. It is now 18:42. At least the studio, the clock tells me it's 18:42. Thank you very much for those of you that have been calling in during the Azan break. 01582 481 822 is the number here in the studio. 01582 481 822 0779 481-822 for your SMS social media messages, SMS or WhatsApp messages. Passionate discussion early for first 40 minutes of Friday Night Live this evening on the speech of Imran Khan at the United Nations last Friday. I'm still happy to take any messages that may come through via social media messages, or you can leave any messages in with the producers, with the production team here in the studio, and we will try to include those in our conversations. But we are going to move on now to the next conversation, to the next story, and this is another story that's made headlines in the last couple of days. I've got a couple of guests that are with me to discuss this story, and that is with regards to China again. Right, so China's making headlines again, and this time, well, maybe even the last time we were discussing it, all for the wrong reasons as opposed to for the right reasons. China is killing religious and ethnic minorities and harvesting their organs. Right, this sounds very disturbing, and this is what the United Nations Human Rights Council have been told. Lawyers for Independent China Tribunal say United Nations member states have legal obligation to act, and that's what slightly worries me, because we know that the United Nations is known not to act as opposed to act. But let's speak to our guests. Okay, let's speak to our guests and let's find out what's been happening. I've got Mahmoud Tohti on the line, who's the co-founder of the World Uyghur Congress, prominent Uyghur Canadian human rights activist. Let's get both panelists live. And we've also got Ethan Gutman, author of The Slaughter, co-founder of the International Coalition to End Transplant Abuse in China. So far better experts than I am, or I can comment on this particular story. Let me go to Ethan first, who's the author of The Slaughter. Ethan, firstly, welcome to Friday Night Live, and thank you very much for joining us this evening. A very disturbing story here. Tell me and our listeners what's been happening.
Well, it's a long story.
Right.
It didn't start yesterday. It started way back in the 90s. About the mid-90s. This is as far as we can determine, about the mid-90s, in a place in China or northwest China called Xinjiang. The Uyghurs call it East Turkestan.
Yeah.
In that region, they started doing live organ harvesting for the first time, as far as we know, just of prisoners.
No.
But it was live. That is, they were shooting a person, but not in a lethal way, and then taking out their organs while the heart was still beating. You get a much better a chance of the organ not being rejected by the new host if you do it this way. It's kind of like cutting flowers under running water or something.
Wow.
And by 1997, you have the first cases, and we don't have a lot of them, but we have a few, of high-ranking Chinese Communist Party officials going over to Xinjiang to get organs, kidneys and livers, for these aging cadres. Things go quiet for a little bit, and then the Falun Gong persecution begins. That's the religious group, but basically a Buddhist revival group.
Yeah.
Is the way I'd describe it. Which was homegrown in China, and there's a big crackdown on it. It's seen as kind of uncontrolled spread in China.
Right.
That is followed by about a year and a half later by the first cases of Falun Gong in captivity being actually looked at for their organs.
Right. Right.
And that is how the story starts. And after that, we get into the middle period, which is sort of a massive ramping up of the transplant facilities in China.
Right. So this middle period that you're referring to is this the recent last couple of years? Is that what we're referring to?
No, we're really the middle period is what I'd say from about 2001 to 2015 or so.
Wow.
And unfortunately, there's a tremendous. We don't have exact numbers, of course, on any of this. I mean, this is but I would estimate, it's on the level of the Syrian civil war. The amount of people who've been harvested for their organs. It's quite a phenomenal number.
Sorry, what was that? It's on the level of what was that last comment?
The Syrian civil war.
Wow.
Which is the other big tragedy that we've seen in this century.
Yeah.
which involved hundreds of thousands of people. And this is the same thing. These people they're not missing a single kidney. This isn't the kidney in the bathtub story. They take every organ, as far as we can tell.
Wow. Right, so let me come back to you, Ethan. Thank you very much for enlightening us with that background. Let me go to Mehmet Tuhti, who's the co-founder of the World Uyghur Congress. Mehmet, as earlier comments from Ethan, so this is now, of course, impacting that East Turkmenistan area region, right? And these concentration camps, as some commentators have labelled them, where this huge amount of Uyghur community have been imprisoned. What do you know, and what are the stories coming out from that area that you're aware of, Mehmet?
Okay, Assalamu alaikum first of all.
Wa alaikum assalam.
Let me correct. It is not East Turkmenistan, it is East Turkestan.
Right.
What we know, or what we now talking about, is the tiny drop in the ocean because of the tight control of the information by the Chinese government.
Yeah.
And thanks to Ethan and his colleagues over the decades, working very hard in the documented number of cases, and even published a book. And organ harvesting is a long story that's ignored by the world community, specifically when it comes to Uyghurs. And because since a couple of years, 2 years, the massive internment of more than 3 million Uyghurs in concentration camps.
Yeah.
And after Chinese government collectively conducted DNA sequencing, blood sample examination, collection, and all sorts of things, and international community began to give their attention to this atrocity. So now what we know about is the major airports in East Turkestan, just like Kashgar and Urumqi, there is specifically designated lane for live organ transportation. It is clearly written in Chinese and the Uyghur language, and sometimes even English as well. And also...
sorry, Mehmet, what is written on the airports?
It actually says live organ transplant lane. It's like a fast lane.
Yeah.
It's like a VIP lane, so you can speed the organs through.
Wow.
On the major airports like Kashgar, Urumqi, or Hotan, it is very common, and there are specific lanes for organ transportation just to speed up or prevent other people's intervention. There is specific designated lane already established, so it is very common. Yeah. And most importantly, the Chinese government transferred more than 500,000 Uyghur males and some females from the age of 20 to 45 to mainland China and scattered them all prisons across China. And those Uyghurs are now the first-hand victim of organ harvesting, because this transfer is done in absolute secrecy, and there is no information revealed, and some journalists, by calling the prisons in mainland China, they confirmed that there are a large number of Uyghur prisoners transferred over the years. Yeah. And so because those Uyghurs are transferred in absolute secrecy, and it is very possible that Chinese government using them as a live organ harvester.
Right.
Also, recently, I did not personally confirm it, and that there is a huge advertisement campaign going on targeting the Middle East. So, basically saying that halal organs available.
Right. Thanks for that, Mehmet. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. I've got about 3 minutes. But I mean, gentlemen, I mean, what you're describing is absolutely a tragedy, and it's horrific in terms of what's been described. So, of course, it seems that there is now some attention, some media attention that's been drawn towards it. What's actually been done about it, Ethan? Right? I know your book here.
Very little. You know, my colleague's absolutely right. The Uyghurs are are absolutely the news source. The fact that about 15 million Uyghurs have been blood tested in a manner that can be used for tissue matching for organs.
But Ethan, this has gone to
science fiction.
I hear that, but this is now going to the United Nations Human Rights Council.
That won't do very little because, as you know, China has tremendous influence over the UN.
Yeah.
But I am optimistic about something that can be done.
Right.
This really comes down to the medical community. They hold the big cards in this table, okay? Right. And the fact is that the medical community comes out and instead of trying to make a deal with China, says, that's it, we can't have any more contact with you, none of your transplant surgeons can come to our conferences, you can't study in our universities, you can't study surgery. If we do that, if the medical world of the West does that, believe me, China will turn quickly because that is a pillar industry for them. So that's what needs to happen. And I urge everyone listening, if you can hear my voice right now, please just bring this up with your doctor. I don't care if it's your dentist or your physical therapist. Bring it up. This is something that has to happen on the grassroots. Every doctor in this country needs to know, why are people asking about this? Maybe I need to read something about it.
All right. Okay, Ethan. All right.
Canadian Medical Association, U.S. Medical Association, and the U.K. Medical Association, they are working together to issue a joint statement. Just not only condemn the Chinese practice, at the same time, just disassociate them from the Chinese medical hospitals that practice on organ harvesting.
Right.
And one thing I would like to bring, because...
very quickly, Mehmet, we're running out of time. You've got about 30 seconds.
Okay, the Chinese government is backed by the majority Muslim countries. The Muslim countries now are supporting the China. And so, we are, as a Muslim, we have to speak up and we have to send our message clear and loudly to Muslim countries and let them not be part of this human tragedy.
All right. Thank you very much on that note, Mehmet. I will pick up this conversation and continue it into the next hour for a couple of minutes at least. But unfortunately, we are forced to go into a commercial break in about 30 seconds' time. Mehmet Toti and Ethan Gutman, thank you very much for joining us this evening and enlightening us and educating us on a very important subject matter. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thanks. Bye-bye. Okay, listeners, that was very disturbing, very, very disturbing in terms of what I was hearing from Mehmet Toti and Ethan Gutman, and I'll kind of summarize it when I come back, and let me just pull some thoughts together because that was horrific. Live human organ harvesting from Muslims, right? The Chinese doing this from Muslims, and it's probably just a fraction of what is actually going on in reality. Let's discuss this. Let's come back to it when we come back from a commercial break. This is Hafiz Sha'ban, Friday Night Live on Luton 105.1 FM. We're about to go into commercial break. We'll be back in a couple of minutes, and until then, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
So lost, searching for purpose. My soul felt so worthless, no. I felt so lost. I know that he's there. I know that he cares about me. Searching for love, so I can know my purpose on this earth. I feel so lost. I feel so damn lost. And what have I done to think that I'm worthy for mercy? I'm begging you, please, Ya Rabbi. I'm down on my knees. If only I could be more open. I tell you how I was so broken. I'm searching for something, but I don't know what it is that I can put on my hope in. I'm rolling around in this ocean. I'm about to drown. You can see it in my eyes. I'm done with this life, these egos and lies. Oh, I'm about to fly away and leave this all behind. I know it's worth all the pain before the sun comes to rain. What you crying for? What you crying for? I know it's worth all the pain before the sun comes to rain. Why you crying for? What are you crying for? But I'm still searching for Allah, so I can know my purpose on this earth. I feel so lost. I feel so damn lost. And what have I done to think that I'm worthy for mercy? I'm begging you, please, Ya Rabbi. I'm down on my knees. If only I could be more open. I tell you how I was so broken. I'm searching for something, but I don't know what it is that I can put on my hope in. I'm rolling around in this ocean, and I'm about to drown. You can see it in my eyes. I'm done with this life, these egos and lies. Oh, I'm about to fly away and leave this all behind.
Assalamu alaikum, this is Atif Nawaz and you're listening to an Inspire FM podcast.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu, and welcome back to Friday Night Live with me, Hafiz Sha'ban. This Friday evening on the 4th of October 2019, broadcasting live as usual on Inspire FM 105.1 FM and also to our sister stations, live Facebook stream on the Inspire FM Facebook page, in addition to live broadcast via the Inspire FM app. 1 hour is already over of the show. A very passionate conversations for the last hour with a number of different panelists, experts. Initially discussing the speech of Imran Khan at the United Nations last Friday, and then also discussing a very what I'm going to label as a very disturbing story, unfortunately, and that was with regards to China harvesting organs from minorities. I mean, that's very disturbing, right? And that's just a fraction of information that's arrived in the public domain. What's actually happening, not known to the public, right, and not in the public domain, is incredibly unfathomable, right? But again, I want to reach out to my listeners, 01582 481 822, and the question I want to ask my listeners is that this is going again back to the United Nations. Now, I asked this question because, last week someone told me that I was being too pessimistic when it comes to the United Nations, but, I asked this very same question to Ethan Gutman, who's the author of The Slaughter, co-founder of the International Coalition to End Transplant Abuse in China. And the question I asked him, well, what can we do with regards to China? Well, it's going to the United Nations, right? And maybe that's a glimmer of hope. And again, very pessimistic, because China has the rights of veto within the United Nations, and it can, of course, just veto anything that is brought into the United Nations, trying to condemn, trying to, attack, or trying to, highlight any particular issue against China. It's a bit of a bit of an institution that's been set up by people who want to use and abuse it by the sounds of it. But that's my thoughts, that's my opinions. I want to hear your thoughts and your opinions. 01582481822 is the number here in the studio. 07779481822 for your social media messages. Do get your messages in to me because I want to hear what you think and what you make of what we've been discussing until now. Right, we're going to move on to our next story this evening. We're going to move on to a slightly, well, possibly a slightly positive story, and that's an interesting piece of news. Now, I don't know if a lot of our listeners are aware and are familiar with this piece of news, right? And that is the piece of news which actually involves and is of interest to a lot of our listeners, if not all of our listeners, and that's with regards to Saudi Arabia. You might want to hear out, you might want to listen out for this piece of news, and that's Saudi Arabia recently announced that it's going to start issuing tourism visas. That's right, you've heard me correct, tourism visas, Saudi Arabia. Now, that's not a kind of a holiday destination a lot of people would have thought of. Saudi Arabia. I mean, what's in Saudi Arabia? Of course, it's got a huge amount of interest for businesses and for people who want to conduct business. And of course, a lot of people go out there for business. And of course, as for the Muslim community will know, a lot of Muslims go out to Saudi for the religious pilgrimage to the Haram. But it's opening up now tourism visas, and a lot of you may have heard, but recently a number of flights have been announced, and they are to be hosted in Saudi, and this is a beginning. As part of a bigger scheme that's been planned out there. But let me speak to some experts. Let me stop talking and let me speak to some experts. Let me go to. We've got a lot of interference there, but let me try to go to Lauren Keefe, who's an author, or a guidebook author, travel writer, editor, and consultant. Lauren, welcome to Friday Night Live, and thank you very much for giving us your precious time this Friday evening. Tell us, Lauren, what's happening here with Saudi and its start to issuing tourism visas.
Yeah, it's a really exciting time for Saudi Arabia. This is the first time that they've issued tourist visas that are available to casual travelers for the first time in the country's history. Saudi Arabia has notoriously been one of the most difficult countries for non-Muslims to enter because previously visas were only available for pilgrims or for people who were coming for business reasons, so we're sponsored by a Saudi business within the country. So this is really the first time that casual tourists have had the chance to explore the country.
Right, wow. Okay, interesting. We've also got Dr. Asim Safdar, who's an ex-Lutonian, so someone who's very close to home from where we're broadcasting, currently lives and works in Saudi Arabia. I think we've got Dr. Asim also online. So, Dr. Asim, assalamu alaikum.
Welcome, salam. Yes, how are you now?
Yeah, fantastic. Very well. Thank you very much for joining us this evening, Dr. Asim, on Friday Night Live. Tell us also from your perspective. It means, as Lauren was saying earlier, it's always been a nightmare trying to go to Saudi unless you want to go through this the formal route of getting a pilgrimage visa. What's your understanding, Dr. Asim, of the tourism visa, and has it already started? And is this about to make life a lot easier for us to travel into Saudi?
Yes, we heard about it on local kind of, WhatsApp or social media. A lot of fellow colleagues are kind of talking about it. The fact that it's a lot cheaper than earlier to bring your people like your family out to come and visit you. So obviously the good thing now is there's less restriction. Now previously, I think you had to, if you wanted to go to Makkah, Medina, you had to spend a minimum of 15 days there, and then you're only allowed out to visit other areas of the country. And, if you were caught breaking the rules, it could be penalty. So alhamdulillah, it's good that they've relaxed that, and now it's also a lot cheaper, so it's a lot easier to bring out family and friends to come and visit, and they don't have to be directly related to you.
Okay, that's interesting. And Lauren, have you actually looked into the guidelines that have been issued? Is it as easy as going online and applying for this tourism visa, or is there still some bureaucracy attached to this process?
It's actually pretty easy. It's just an online application. At the moment, it's open to 49 countries, but that covers all of Europe, the U.S., Canada, China, Japan, Australia, New Zealand. And the thought is that it will open up to more countries as time goes on. But the tourist visas are available to other nationalities. It's just a matter of going into a Saudi embassy.
Right. Okay. So, sounds interesting. It sounds easy. I think this is music to the ears of a lot of our listeners. Like Dr. Asim is suggesting earlier. Personally, I've lived out in that region, and I know if you want your family or friends to visit, it's a huge nightmare. Does that, Dr. Asim, does that now mean that I could then potentially just go online to, I don't know, the Saudi consulate website or whatever it may be, and obviously do a bit of due diligence and fill in a couple of forms, and lo and behold, I've been issued a tourist visa, which allows you almost 30 or 90 days. I think it allows you 90 days out in Saudi now.
Yeah, now 90 days is allowed in your kind of visit period, and I think the period to do the application online is just 7 minutes. Wow. If you look on the e-visa website, and as Laura mentioned, it's obviously all of Europe. It's only open to Western countries now. I think there's 3 Muslim countries, including Brunei and Malaysia, but I'm sure very quickly it's going to be rolled out to other nationalities.
Wow, so
tourism is a very big part of this Vision 2030 plan that the government has here to try and bring people in. And obviously there's a lot of things to explore other than Makkah and Medina here.
Yeah, I'm going to come on to that, and I'm going to ask that question to Lauren, but I just want to repeat that for our listeners who may not quite believe what they're hearing, right? So this is what we're actually saying is, I mean, trust me, I've lived out in that region. When you're talking about a visa, it's a huge nightmare, right? So now to say you can actually go onto an e-visa website, fill in an application form, and in almost 10 minutes time, right, you have at least a process completed for an application form to get an e-visa to visit Saudi and be allowed to go out in Saudi for almost 90 days, 3 months. That's incredible. And I'm sure a lot of people are probably not privy to that. I think that information hasn't quite got out there. Otherwise, there would have been a huge surge. Previously, of course, we were quite even the Muslim community was crippled and handicapped to be dependent upon a travel agent to do all of that process for them, and then the charges and then the administrative charges and so on and so forth. Everyone's making money out of it, right? But let me go back to Lauren, right? A lot of people might be asking questions. I mean, what is there to see in Saudi apart from the holy sites, right? And that's what people go out there. I mean, Lauren, you write, you're an author, you're a guidebook, a travel writer, editor, consultant. Is there much to see in wider Saudi than the sites, the sacred sites in terms of in Mecca and Medina?
There's so much to see. It's actually easy to forget how big of a country it is. Saudi Arabia is 9 times the size of the UK. Yeah. It has almost 2,000 kilometers of coastline along the Red Sea. There is so much to do there. One of my favorite cities when I visited was Jeddah. There's beautiful architecture, especially in the historic part of the city.
Jeddah, did you say Jeddah?
Jeddah, yes.
Right, wow.
It feels like it's so vibrant, and there's just so much life there and so much going on. Yeah. The Red Sea coast at the moment is pretty undeveloped, but that is supposed to be changing in the next few years. There's lots of big projects going on, one called the Red Sea Project, another one called NEOM that is supposed to bring in a lot of resorts, put some of those on the Red Sea Islands, and also kind of make a cross-border region with Egypt and Jordan as well. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens with that, but there's so much to do outside of the holy cities.
Yeah, wow. And Dr. Asim, I mean, from your perspective, I mean, from a kind of a pilgrim perspective, right? There's a lot of people that always wanted to go and travel around Saudi, go and see the Islamic history, go and see some of the early, points and places, very historical places, Badr and some of the other, places that people wanted to see. Is that area of tourism also going to be developed? Do you know if that's in the pipeline? Because historically, that's been very underdeveloped, and the Saudi authorities haven't really paid much attention to those areas.
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely something that everyone's becoming a lot more aware of. Certainly, it's something that myself and my family would like to explore. I think on the actual Saudi visa website, there is like Al-Hassa, which is just an hour's drive actually from me. And I'm living in eastern Saudi Arabia in the Dammam Dahran area. Right. And there's a lot of course, we're able to drive over to Bahrain and obviously things like Qatar and UAE and all the places available. But we can look and explore in Saudi Arabia, south of Saudi Arabia, Abha. There's some very, very nice things, and the weather's a lot cooler time of year, so that's supposed to be a very nice and scenic place the Murray, Pakistan, the sea. That also in the north.
So Dr. Asim,
obviously you've got
the line's very bad. So we're kind of getting you intermittently. I don't know if the producers can do something to make the line any better at all. But let's give it one more try. If you do you want to continue talking, let's see if it's any better.
A little bit better now.
No, the lines is not very clear. I think let's get the producers to try again contacting you, and maybe we can see if it's any better. Lauren, whilst we try resolve some of the technical issues with Dr. Asim, you were mentioning earlier with regards to some of the places to visit, and you've mentioned a number of them. I mean, this initiative to try to now open up Saudi to tourists, it hasn't been an easy decision, and it's almost been forced upon Saudi due to a lot of other issues that they've had internally. I mean, the oil prices have plummeted, revenue, they have to look to diversify in terms of streams of revenue, and of course tourism was one of those areas which was an easy pick. I mean, it's not been an easy ride, has it?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Once oil prices were starting to plummet, the government put together Vision 2030, which was mentioned previously, and tourism has always been a cornerstone of that. So some people seem to be surprised that the tourism visa has come now, but that's actually been in the works for a number of years and was promised in 2017, was promised in 2018, but now it's finally a reality.
Right, fantastic. All right, so I don't know if you know some of the technical details around it, but I'm getting some questions online with regards to the visa. I unfortunately can't navigate to it for some reason, so I'm having problems navigating to the question itself. But okay, fine. So that's good. I mean, of course, there is the upcoming big fight in December, which is happening in Jeddah. Or is it in Riyadh? Do you know the AJ fight?
I'm not 100% sure. I know there's going to be a festival taking place in Riyadh, I think in the next couple of months, and then again there will be Jeddah season, I think starting in December and running until February.
Right. Okay. I mean, the question from one of our listeners is, does the visa include entry to Mecca and Medina? Right. I don't know if you have the technical answer to that question.
Mecca and Medina will still be off limits to non-Muslims, so the visa doesn't really have anything to do with that. If you're a non-Muslim, you will not be able to go.
Yeah, so, but let's say I'm a Muslim and I opt for the tourist visa as opposed to a pilgrim visa, right? I'm assuming, or are there any restrictions on a tourist visa that no, you can't go to Mecca, Medina? You actually have to have a pilgrim visa to be able to make the Umrah. I don't know if you would know that distinction or not.
If you're making Umrah, I think you do have to have the specific Umrah visa, but I'm not 100% sure.
Right. I think we've got Dr. Asim back online. Dr. Asim, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Hope you can hear me now.
Yep, I can hear you, Dr.
I'm just
Asim.
in a mall. It's Friday night here, so it's peak season, and
okay.
that's why there's a little bit of announcement going on.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Dr. Asim, a quick question for you. I don't know to what extent you've looked into the tourism visa and how that is distinct from, let's say, the Umrah visa, right? So, I mean, if someone gets a tourist visa, can any restrictions on him to go and perform the Umrah?
I'm not exactly as Lauren said, they haven't made that aspect clear.
Yeah.
So I would have suspected as long as you're, I guess they kind of look and ask if you're looking down like a Muslim name.
Yeah.
I assume that would be included in there.
Yeah.
But I guess there's more clarification needed on that.
All right, that's fine. I mean, to our listeners who are asking those questions, I would say go onto the websites and do a bit of due diligence and get that clarified. But I can tell you from first-hand experience. I mean, I've been out to Saudi a number of times on business visa, and when I do business visa, I'm in Jeddah. I always go and make Umrah in Mecca, and no one's ever stopped me. Right. So I would assume that it would probably be okay. That if you have that, but do check that for technical issues and any restrictions that may apply with a tourist visa, right? So it's an early implementation. So am I right in saying that it's now live? The tourist visa is now live, and that's something that
it has started. Went live from the 28th last week.
Oh, I went live on the 28th. And do you know anyone personally, Dr. Asim, that's actually gone ahead and applied and successfully got the visa?
Not as yet, no. I think it just needs a little bit more publicity like you're doing now. for people to find out. But I'm sure slowly the word will get around.
Right. And Lauren, you said you've visited. Is it recently that you visited the Saudi during this kind of initiative that's been going on, or is it a historical reference?
No, it was actually at the beginning of September. I was there for about 10 days, and then there was also a big launch event for the visa in Riyadh on the 27th, so I went back to attend that.
Oh, fantastic. So how are you finding your travel to Saudi? I don't know if this was your first travel or you've traveled there previously. Or what were your experiences like?
No, this was my first time there. It was absolutely incredible. I didn't 100% know what to expect, so I went with an open mind, and I was really amazed by everything that I saw. The people were incredibly friendly. It was a really brilliant time.
Ah, fantastic! That's some good publicity there from you, Lauren. Thank you very much. And Dr. Asim, yourself. I mean, you're traveling around. You're living in Saudi. What kind of changes are you seeing? I mean, the fact that this is now going to make it a lot easier is going to mean that, I mean, Saudis, at least the few of the cities are very cosmopolitan anyway. But I guess it's going to be a lot more cosmopolitan than it's ever been before.
Yeah, no, I think there's a huge number of changes coming in with the Vision 2030 project. I think Saudi in general is opening up a huge amount. Obviously, they're sort of looking to what's happened in places like UAE and Dubai, and they're realizing that we need to kind of start making a lot more money from tourism, and obviously, cut the dependency on oil. So I think you're going to see a lot more of this kind of stuff, and the people are very welcoming, very generous, and they're very hospitable to guests. And I'm sure, like Lauren said, the people that come here, inshallah, will have a very good experience. I've been traveling, obviously, to Makkah, Medina, Riyadh. I've started in the east side across to Bahrain, and generally they're very friendly. They've got a very good sense of humour, and they're very hospitable and generous.
Yeah, Dr.
And in fact, a lot of them speak English. And now ladies are driving, and a lot of young generation have studied abroad, and they're a lot more open and understanding of people from cultures around the world.
All right. So, Dr. Asim, you're living out there. Surely you're going to be able to answer my next question, which is, how do I get a ticket to come out in December and watch that AJ fight?
Well, the tickets are all usually these things they sell out very quickly online. I heard the Imran Khan fight was very well received, and now they've got things like Wizard of Oz plays on actually this week here in the IFRA Center in the Dammam, and there's lots and lots of these kind of plays and outside things. I never thought I'd hear of Wizard of Oz happening here, but now they had that. The first cinemas open here in Dammam, right close to where I'm visiting a mall now, and there's more and more of these opening up as well.
Okay, all right, great.
It's all online here. Everything's online.
Everything's online. Lauren, I don't know if you can answer that question and tell a lot of our listeners who are quite keen, kind of a mixed martial arts and a boxing fan club here in Luton, and I'm sure there'll be quite a few people interested in coming out there and to watch that big fight in early December.
Yeah, it'll be easy to go. It's as simple as booking a ticket and getting a visa now.
Fantastic. And Dr. Asim, I mean, you said you're living on the eastern side. I mean, tell us a bit about, people who are probably not familiar with Saudi as a whole, apart from Makkah, Medina, as I was saying earlier. I mean, in terms of other main cities, that are out there for people to potentially visit, what would they include? What are some of the areas that you would recommend for people to visit?
Well, there's a place called Al-Hafsa here, which has some very old historic caves and sites around here. Obviously, Dammam is a very kind of bustling hub. It's the third biggest city where Khobar, Dammam kind of joined together. Like Luton and Dunstable, if you like, but a lot bigger.
Right.
I mean, there's loads of restaurants, there's food of all varieties, and there's a lot of good shopping as well available here.
Right, fantastic. Okay, Lauren, last final notes from yourself. Key highlights for you, for people listening who are probably considering potentially a next holiday in Saudi. Apart from what you've said earlier, and I know you emphasized the Red Sea resorts, or at least the coastline, 2,000 kilometers of it, I think you said earlier.
Yeah. I can't believe I didn't mention it earlier, but the absolute favorite thing that I saw in Saudi Arabia is the archaeological site called Madain Salah. It's the sister city of Petra. It was built by the same ancient civilization, but there haven't been that many tourists. Petra is approaching almost 1 million visitors each year. but the sites in Saudi Arabia obviously have seen much fewer, but it still has the beautiful tombs that are carved directly into the faces of the mountains. It's just a really magical and mysterious site, and it's really worth visiting. And the town nearby called Al-Ula also has a few archaeological sites within it, and it's just a really, really fun place to be.
So, Lauren, sorry, can you just repeat the name of the place? You said Petra, twin sister of Petra.
The name of the site is called Madain Salah or Hegra.
Okay, Madain Salah. And is it really as historical and as beautiful as Petra is? I mean, I think Petra will, be known to a lot of our listeners because of its, because of the fact that it's been in a lot of the mainstream movies in the past.
Yeah, Hegra really deserves more attention. It doesn't have quite the same canyons as Petra does, so you don't kind of wander through this narrow slot canyon to see the treasury, but the tombs are just immaculate, and I would say that they're actually in better condition than the ones at Petra, because Petra has had so many visitors, and they're just, the ones at Hegra seem less eroded by the weather and just generally less seen by people.
All right. Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we've run out of time. Lauren Keefe and Dr. Asim Safdar, thank you very much for joining us this evening and enlightening us with the tourism information on Saudi Arabia. Thank you very much to both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lauren. Thank you very much, Dr. Asim. Jazakallah. Assalamu alaikum. Right, listeners, that was a very interesting piece of information, right? So, and I was serious when I was saying, let me repeat that to our listeners, because I think a lot of our listeners might not be aware of this, right? Saudi Arabia has started to issue tourism visas, right? Just like you can go out on a holiday to any tourist destination, whether it's Europe, of course, Europe, you don't need a visa, or whether it's any other country in the world, Egypt or Gulf or Malaysia or in Indonesia, you can now actually go on the website, and you were hearing that from these individuals. You can go on the website, Saudi website, I don't know what it is, but just Google it, e-visa website, apply for a Saudi tourist visa, and you could have a visa to go to Saudi and spend 90 days in Saudi. Wow, that's incredible stuff, because historically you couldn't spend more than a couple of weeks, maximum a month, and that's if you wanted to go to Hajj or Umrah. And now you'll be able to go see all of those beautiful cities of Saudi, where all of that Islamic history remains. Wow. Inshallah ta'ala, I want to take that opportunity at the soonest available opportunity, and I hope a lot of our listeners will do also, inshallah ta'ala. Right, folks, we are coming to the last half an hour of the show, inshallah ta'ala, and we're about to go into a commercial break. So when I come back from the commercial break, I'll do a quick summary of what we have been discussing this evening, and we're going to be discussing another serious subject matter, and that is the National Homelessness Week. Right, I want your attention for this subject matter, National Homelessness Week. We want to discuss what's happening and understand what's happening and what we can do to help, right? So don't go away, folks. Stay tuned. I'll be back in a couple of minutes. Until then, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
You're listening to an Inspire FM podcast, making available our popular programs from our daily broadcast on Inspire FM.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome back to Friday Night Live for what is the last half an hour of this evening's show. And wow, the last hour and a half have just flown by so quickly. It is the Friday 4th of October. It is 1930. And it's great to be here in the studio discussing a whole host of subject matters. We have been discussing and sharing thoughts and opinions on Imran Khan's speech last Friday in the United Nations. Thanks for all of you who called, left your messages. 01582 481 822, 0777 481 822. We moved on from the discussion on Imran Khan to discussing a rather disturbing story, and that was China. China in the headlines again. China is in the headlines for a lot of reasons at the moment, and a lot of them seem to be negative. In this particular case, China is harvesting organs from minorities, right, including the Uyghur Muslims. Activists told the United Nations. We had a number of experts discussing what's been going on and the transplant abuse that's happening in China. Now, transplant abuse is a huge business in a lot of areas of the world. India, China, and other Asian countries, okay, and China seems to be right at the forefront of it, and especially, after it has set up these concentration camps in East China, and where a lot of the victims are the Uyghur Muslims. Right, so, we need to familiarize ourselves with what's going on, and I would recommend our listeners to read into that. Last half an hour I've been discussing a very positive subject, for some of the reasons at least anyway, and that Saudi Arabia has started to issue tourism visas, right? So this is something that was totally unheard of in the past. It was a huge nightmare if you ever wanted to go to Saudi, right? Unless you wanted to go for Umrah or Hajj, and you would of course conduct or you would secure a visa through the travel agents. But now you can actually go and visit Saudi with a tourist visa, and it's apparently very, very easy to get a tourist visa. So if you've already tried, if you're already familiar with the process and you've gone through that process, tell me about it. Tell our listeners about it. 01582 481 822, 01582 481 822, or SMS or WhatsApp me on 07779 481 822. Right, so those are some of the stories that we have been covering for the last hour and a half. My last half an hour is going to be covering a serious subject matter, right? So we're accustomed to covering a lot of serious subject matters on Friday Night Live, right? We've got to address these subject matters, we've got to address these subjects, we've got to address these issues, and we're going to be raising them and discussing them with our community, to inform them, to make them an informed community so they know what's going on around them. I think that's a principal reason why we discuss them. And a secondary reason is to then, get some action out of the community, get some action from our listeners, right? We're not a community that likes to listen. We're a community that likes to be informed and then likes to translate that into action. And I think that's what is required for our next subject matter, because the next subject matter, which I'm not very familiar with too, and I'm hoping that our guest tonight's going to, make me a bit more educated about this subject matter, and also make our listeners a lot more educated about this particular subject matter. But definitely we want some action, is the National Homelessness Week, right? National Homelessness Week. This is what the producers have given me as a subject to discuss for the last half an hour of this show, and I'm being told is between the 7th and the 13th of October, right? So I've got a guest with me, and unfortunately I haven't even been given a lot of detail with regards to the guest this evening. I'm being told is Tabruz, and I'm hoping I've pronounced the name correctly. Let me welcome Tabruz to the show. Tabruz, have I got your name correct? But yes, first and foremost, welcome to Friday Night Live this evening.
Yes, hello, good evening. Yes, first of all, yes, you got my name right, and also thank you for having me on the show.
Brilliant, great. That's always good to get you to start off with a positive note by getting the name right of our guest. So, Tabruz, tell me, how are you? Because I don't have any background about you here in front of me. How are you linked and associated with the National Homelessness Week?
Okay, so basically, you might know that the 10th of October is World Homeless Day.
Yes.
And it's also World Mental Health Day as well. So the organization I work for is called Usafa Outreach, and one of our projects is a homelessness support service, and we've been doing that across the UK for a number of years now. So our charity has actually launched National Homeless Awareness Week, which is the week this year from 7th of October to the 13th of October. The purpose of the week, as you said before, is one, to educate people regarding homelessness. It's also to kind of encourage them with regards to what action they can take, challenge their conceptions or perceptions of homelessness, and look at how they can make a difference, and also how they can influence decision makers in their locality with regards to tackling an issue. Because all of us would have, generally seen people on the street, on the way home from work, on the way to the gym, or when we're out shopping. So rough sleeping or people on the streets is something which we see more or less every day.
Yeah.
And, as a community, we normally want to do something about it.
Yeah.
But can I just ask you, okay, when I use the word homeless, with yourself, what do you think? What do you think? Who's a homeless person, or what is the definition of homelessness?
All right, so that's a good question, and I'm glad that panelists has put a question back to me as the presenter, which is good. But that's a way of informing our listenership too, right? So homelessness for me is a person who doesn't have a shelter over his head and he doesn't have a home to go to at night to sleep in. Would that be a correct definition, Tabraz?
Yes. So basically, it is the definition is somebody who doesn't have a fixed abode.
A fixed abode, right?
A person who is rough sleeping is homeless. A person who is sofa surfing, we class as homeless.
Right.
A person who's living in a hostel is homeless.
Okay.
A person who's in temporary accommodation is also homeless.
Right.
There are actually 320,000 homeless people in the UK.
Wow.
Now, when you think of the UK, we're at the forefront of a lot of things. We're quite proud of, as a nation, what we achieve and our standard of living. Now, the fact we have that many homeless people in the UK is quite saddening.
Yeah.
The government released some stats on the 1st of October.
Yeah.
In the past year, 768 people have died due to sleeping rough on the streets.
Right. So Tabraz, just give me a moment to breathe, right? Because a lot of information that you're sharing, valuable information, I want to digest it, right? And I want to just put it into some piecemeal to get it out there to our listeners, because a lot of that valuable information might have just gone through them, right? So we've got the National Homelessness Week that's coming up from the 7th to the 13th of October. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Right. And then you've got a World Homelessness Day also, which is 10th of October, did you say?
Correct, yes.
Right, 10th of October, right? And then you've just given us the definition of homelessness is someone who doesn't have a fixed abode, right? Which is very interesting, actually, because it's not quite the definition that I thought of, but that does, add a lot of clarity to that too, right? And then you've also then cited a figure for our listeners, 320,000 people who are homeless in the UK, correct?
Correct.
Right, and as a lot of our listeners will know, right, and as you said earlier, a lot of us go into town, we travel around, and the number of people, right, firstly the food banks are on the rise, the austerity measures are still out there in place, full place, and unfortunately the number of people that we're seeing sleeping rough, or we're seeing people asking for help on the streets or begging, is alarmingly increasing. At least that's my perception of it. Is that what the statistics are also telling us, Tabraz?
There has been an increase in rough sleepers.
Yeah.
I see nationally, obviously our organisation is based in Birmingham.
Right.
So nationally there has been a 2% decrease.
Right.
In homeless figures.
Right.
Birmingham has seen a 50% increase.
Right. 50% increase.
Yes.
And then you cited 768 deaths that we've had. Did you say that was due to in the past year? People sleeping rough. Is that what you said?
Correct. Yeah.
That's incredible.
And these are official government figures.
That is incredible, because if it's official government figures, then you can expect almost 10% an increment as opposed to a decrease on those numbers. That's an incredible amount of people that have just died because of almost if I can say the phrase, needlessly.
Yeah, it is a sad reality. It is definitely a sad reality, unfortunately. So something which we're doing as part of National Homeless Awareness Week is we're actually going around to different cities and towns around the UK.
Yeah.
So, for example, on Monday, we are in Glasgow. So actually the team is actually going to Glasgow. On Tuesday, we're in Bradford. We're then going to Manchester.
Right.
We're actually in London on Thursday.
Right.
And then we're going to Cardiff, Brighton, and Birmingham.
But out of all of these cities, Tabriz, right? So sorry to interject there, right? You would have a kind of a hot spot, right? Is the north more impacted? Is it the south? Is it London? Which is the biggest kind of culprit city, or where is this problem? The worst.
I said to you at the start, nationally the figures are 320,000 nationally.
Yeah.
Out of those 320,000, 170,000 are in London.
Wow. Yeah, 170,000 in London.
So
That's
you find more than half the homeless population in London, which is why when we're in London, we actually we've got a stall in Trafalgar Square during the daytime, and we actually also go into Downing Street to present some recommendations with regards to what can be done to prevent homelessness and also help people out of the situation. And then we've got a workshop in actually Waltham Forest in the town hall on the 10th as well. And that's more about individuals finding out what they can do on a community level, because whilst it's good to educate people about homelessness and the causes of it, really, what can we do as a society and as a community to help, take people out of crisis point? You mentioned obviously food banks are on the rise. We also run food banks around the UK, and I would say somebody who is actually using a food bank service is at risk of becoming homeless because there's definitely a crisis point there. So how can we help? What are the solutions to helping these people? And those are what we're discussing as part of these workshops with regards to, trying to create local action.
Fantastic. I mean, very, very interesting pieces of information that, Tabriz, you're sharing with our listeners. This is Friday, just a reminder, this is Friday Night Live, and no show is really, complete without the contribution from our listeners. And that's what we always encourage, your views, your thoughts, your questions to our panelists, our presenters, to enliven our conversations and our discussions. 01582 481 822, 01582 481 822, 07779 481 822 is the number for your social media messages. I want to hear your messages. I want to see your messages come through, please. It is getting a lot colder out there. Autumn is upon us, winter will be upon us very, very soon, and this subject matter, National Homelessness Week, and homelessness as a general point is going to be a lot more pertinent, reality for a lot of us. If we're feeling cold, living in nice homes, then you can imagine what it's like, sleeping rough on the streets, right? Now, Tabriz, you've pointed and you've indicated towards community action, and people, being aware, and people, turning to action. Before we turn to people, and I love, and I'm a complete supporter of people helping, and being champion of not only listening and informing, but also action. Tell me about the government and this capitalist, government, that we've got in place in Britain and in Europe at the moment. I see the figures for homelessness, for austerity measures, for, cuts in the welfare state, cuts in, supporting these good institutions that help a lot of these issues, right? Being cut all the time, right? And hence the increase in the food banks and the increase in the homelessness, etc., etc. Are we actually seeing, apart from rhetoric, any good action from the government at the moment to address these issues?
To try to be fair and balanced, there have been a number of flagship programs and announcements by the government, and you see, every area is different. But for example, in Birmingham, a lot of money has been channeled towards helping the homeless. But the issue is, as you said, in austerity, other areas are affected. Mental health services have been cut. They're finding it harder to recruit because those staff are better paid in the private sector, work less hours in the private sector, etc. So it's not just a simple problem. A lot of people think, if you give a homeless person a roof over the head, it sorts the problem out. It doesn't. Because if I ask you as an individual, tell me about yourself or what makes you you, you will tell me about your family, kids, etc., your hobbies, your friends, all those kind of things. The last thing you will mention is my flat or my house or my apartment. Yeah, you don't really see it as intrinsic part of you. So the way of tackling the problem is you got to look at it on a holistic level, not just from an accommodation point of view, but there are things we can do by holding decision makers to account.
For example, one of the things people don't think about is the number of families which are homeless.
Families?
There are 80 families, so not just a single person, families which are homeless. There are, if you go on our website, all the stats are there, so nhaw.co.uk, but there are 83,000 families which are homeless. 83,000.
83,000 families that are homeless?
Yes.
Wow, that's a staggering figure.
It's a staggering figure, and for example, now if you actually look at how much social houses have been built by local authorities for rent, is actually a very small number. Most of these families who are homeless are in temporary accommodation in bed and breakfasts for up to 6 to 8 months. Now, if as a in your locality, if you were more informed with regards to what your local council is doing about it, you can actually challenge decision makers in a better way. And it's about informing people, and arming them with the correct information so they can challenge the right people. For example, in Birmingham, the authority has built 3,000 houses over the past few years, which sounds fantastic. But if you ask the question, okay, out of these 3,000, how many have been for social rent?
Yeah, exactly.
It's almost zero. It's a very small figure. So you've got to be armed with the right information to hold your elected officials to account. Because the reason we elect our MPs and councillors is to sort problems out.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's a crucial point that you mentioned. I mean, earlier, Tabriz, I was raising this question that the government and the authorities seem to be failing the people, and you said you got to be fair and you got to be representative. I mean, what are the practical things that they're actually doing to address this issue, right? I mean, for me, the list of problems only seems to continue with this system, and austerity, food bank, crime, single families, universal credit. This is just a list of all of these issues that we're having. What are some of the positive gestures or positive actions, steps that you've seen that are actually being taken by government to address this?
See, some of the positive schemes are they've looked at what's worked. Like there's a Housing First scheme, which operates in quite a few cities around the UK, and that's a scheme which is mainly aimed at more entrenched rough sleepers. So they're given accommodation and they're given intensive support. Now that scheme, obviously it is fairly new. It's been running for probably about 6 months now, properly. So it's early days, but so that that scheme on its own is good, but at the same time, you've got to put other support mechanisms in place. For example, once a person is housed, in terms of helping them get back in social circles, community groups have.
It's the full 360. It's the full 360 degrees support that is required around them, right? So I get that. I mean, we're probably running out of time. We've got about 4 minutes left, right? So I want to come on to some practical things, right? So National Awareness Week, Homelessness Week, 7th to the 13th of October. All right. So what are some of the activities that are going to be happening during this week? I think we've highlighted the problem well. We've given some information to the people. We've shared that. Practically, A, what's going to be happening during this week? B, what can our community, how can they be involved, practically do something about it to support this?
Perfect. Of course. So essentially, if people go onto our website, which is www.nhaw.co.uk.
NHW.
NHAW, so it's National Homeless Awareness Week. So N for November, H for Hotel, A for Alpha, W for Whiskey, .co.uk. And if they go on the website, it tells you the events we have planned in those 7 cities. So if they live in those 7 cities, obviously they can get involved, come to the stall, go to the workshops. We're going to have feeds where we're actually directly engaging with homeless people. And if they're not part of those cities, there's actually a Get Involved button. So if they put the details in the Get Involved box, we actually will send out a pack and almost kind of give them things they can do and almost a template of stuff they can do in their own locality, and we will support them as much as possible. So of course this week we've had a number of organizations come to us saying, look, we're thinking about doing a project, or we do a project, but there's these limitations. How can you help us? And us as a charity, we can support either if somebody wants to do something in the local area by, putting the details in the Get Involved box on the website. We can, have a conversation with them, give them the literature, give them the template, and support them as much as possible with regards to getting there. So it's not only limited to these 7 cities. We want more stuff happening all around the UK. We almost want to create this national conversation around homelessness, and people to think, me as an individual, what can I do to solve the problem?
Yeah.
Now, if you think about it, if you see somebody sleeping off on the street, does giving them a sleep bag and saying stay there solve the problem? I'm almost thinking
Tabriz, I'm on the website, right? homelessawarenessweek.co.uk. Fantastic, very simple, gets the message across very clearly. Okay, but you asked, we're running out of time, but very quickly, you just raised a rhetorical question there. I see someone homeless, sleeping rough on the street. What's the type of conversation? Should I approach that individual, have a conversation with him, and what should that conversation be about?
See, what homeless people will tell you is, they aren't treated as humans. People will see them, either walk past them, or they might hurl abuse at them. And a lot of them are missing that social interaction. Now, naturally, they're not going to tell you a life story. You're a stranger, and why would they? But if you have a conversation with them, how are you doing? How's your day been? Try to have a normal conversation. And if you are thinking about what they might need, ask them. What sport you need, what have you tried? I think the conversation is more important than anything else. And if as an individual you're not sure where to refer them to, what to do, obviously people can get in touch with us. We can tell them in the locality who the kind of support charities are. But it's about, don't be afraid of talking to homeless people.
Okay.
If you feel it's safe to do so, so.
Yeah.
And then once you start engaging, only then you'll find out more about the problem.
Fantastic. All right, Tabriz, on that note, thank you very much for joining us, for giving us your time on this Friday evening. Fantastic. Thank you very much for creating awareness amongst our listeners, amongst myself, about the National Homelessness Awareness Week. And as you've said, the website is there, and I will repeat that before the end of the show. Thank you very much for joining us this evening, and have a lovely weekend. Thank you very much, Tabriz. Bye-bye. All right, folks, that was Tabriz from National Homeless Awareness Week, right? Creating awareness about a very important issue. And I'm on their website at the moment, and it's a very useful website actually, because you know what, it gives you some good facts and figures with regards to the reality of how many people are homeless, deaths due to homeless, etc., right? And subhanallah, Islam emphasized this particular issue very, very strongly. Umar ibn Khattab would say that he is worried with regards to an animal that may fall, hurt itself, or even die under the rule of Umar ibn Khattab. And here I'm seeing figures on their website with regard to hundreds of people who are dying due to homelessness, right? Is that a systematic failure of the system, or is that a problem that we have in all systems, right? Question for you to think about and go away with, because unfortunately we are end of the time. And subhanallah, whenever I start this show, I think, wow, I've got 2 hours to address so much, and subhanallah, the 2 hours go by so quickly, and it's already the end of the show. But one small complaint I've got to my listeners is, I don't hear as much from you as I would like to. I would like to make the shows a lot more interactive, a lot more interpersonal, a lot more, two-way conversations, as opposed to Sha'ban speaking over the airwaves and my panelists. So please do try to join in 01582 481822, 07779 481822. Your next opportunity to join in will be next Friday, inshallah ta'ala, when we'll come back with a new host of stories to cover for next week. Until then, it's Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. We stream our daily broadcast on inspirefm.org. You'll find all our daily updates on our social media at Inspire FM Luton.